Welcome to Things You Don't Know. This is another edition of Quick and Quirky. I haven't been sick all year, and almost automatically somebody reaches for a table and says,
Knock on wood.
"Why? Does touching a desk prevent influenza? Does a kitchen cabinet frighten away bad luck?"
Probably not, but millions of people still knock on wood, or at least say the words. After mentioning something good they hope will continue. Today, in this quick and quirky series, we're looking at where this superstition may have come from, why wood became the protective material, and why remarkably similar customs appear around the world.
So, first, knocking on wood usually isn't meant to create good luck. It is more often used to prevent good luck from suddenly turning bad. You say, the car has never broken down. Then you realize you may have just tempted fate. So knock on wood. The expression is essentially a small ritual for saying, God, I hope I didn't just jinx myself. That basic meaning remains in modern dictionaries. Knocking on wood is something done or said to ward off misfortune.
And plenty of people who do it don't seriously believe that the table has supernatural powers. It's just become part superstition, part habit, and part figure of speech. But figuring out where that habit started is surprisingly difficult. The most familiar explanation takes us back to old European beliefs about trees. Trees were extremely important in many pre Christian cultures. Certain trees and groves could have religious significance, and later folklore often associated trees with spirits or supernatural beings. And that led to a popular theory. People touched a tree in order to ask the spirit within it for protection or to thank that spirit for good fortune. Some versions say knocking was intended to awaken the spirit. Others say the noise frightened evil spirits away.
Sounds remarkably like Native American traditions in some ways. You will frequently hear this described as the origin of knocking on wood, but that goes further than the evidence allows. Historians and folklorists generally treat the ancient tree explanation as a possible ancestry, not a demonstrated straight line from ancient religious practice to somebody knocking on an IKEA table today. Even modern accounts of the custom acknowledge that several explanations compete and that there is little agreement about one definitive origin. There's another traditional kind of explanation. In medieval Christianity, wood could have powerful religious associations because of the wooden cross on which Jesus was crucified. Relics, believed to be pieces of the true cross, were especially revered. So, one theory says touching wood eventually became associated with seeking divine protection through the symbolism of the cross.
Again, it's possible, but there is no convincing historical trail showing that our modern knock on wood custom came from directly touching the cross. And that is important here because folk customs often attract explanations after people have already been practicing them for generations. So we have ancient sacred trees, we have Christian symbolism, but there's another explanation too that has much more specific historical documentation.
And what would that be, Chandler?
Well, this might be the key. This theory right here is less dramatic. Knocking on wood may owe a lot to children playing tag.
No way, huh?
Yeah. British folklorists have pointed to old chasing games sometimes known by names like Tiggy Touchwood. The rule was simple. If someone was chasing you, touching wood made you safe. A tree, a fence, a door, or other wooden object became a temporary refuge. Oxford Reference notes that an example connected with this tradition appears in 1805, and folklorists have argued that the modern custom may have developed from these late 18th and early 19th century children's games.
And think about how closely that matches what we do now. In the game, touch wood, you are safe from the person chasing you. In the superstition, touch wood, you are safe from the bad luck chasing you. We cannot prove that the game created the entire superstition, but unlike some of the ancient explanation, this one gives us an actual documented practice involving wood as a place of safety. So, what about this? There's also a language difference. In Britain, people are more likely to say touch wood. Americans generally say knock on wood. The idea is basically the same.
And sometimes we don't even need wood anymore. Someone says, I've never received a speeding ticket. Knock on wood. And then nobody knocks on anything. The words themselves have now become the ritual.
Yeah, which tells us something interesting about superstitions. Once a symbolic action becomes familiar enough, the symbol can survive even when the original action disappears.
And this is definitely not limited to the United States or Britain either. In Spain, there is tocar madera, literally meaning touch wood. In France, toucher du bois means essentially the same thing. In Greece and Cyprus, people may say the equivalent of knock on wood after hearing something undesirable mentioned. Similar customs are found in parts of the Balkans, Russia, the Middle East, and elsewhere.
Turkey now, they have an especially elaborate version. People may knock on wood 3 times. Sometimes it's accompanied by other gestures or expressions intended to protect against misfortune or the evil eye. Iranian tradition also connects knocking on wood with avoiding a jinx or the evil eye, as I said. In Egypt, an expression meaning roughly hold the wood can accompany talk about good fortune that someone hopes will continue.
But here is where it gets even more interesting. Not every culture chooses wood. In Italy, a common protective expression is tocca ferro.
Touch iron.
That's right, touch iron. And a similar iron touching tradition exists in Catalan culture too. So the basic human idea travels very well, even when a protective material changes.
Yeah, so why do people keep doing it? That brings us to psychology. Well, you would know I would have to do that, right, Chandler?
Absolutely, Mr. Neuropsychologist.
There's no scientific evidence that knocking on a table changes the probability of what happens next, but the ritual can change how the person performing it feels. Superstitions become particularly attractive when circumstances are uncertain or outside our control. Psychologists have found that people who feel less control over events can be more likely to turn toward superstitious behavior.
Which explains why these customs flourish around things like health, travel, exams, sports, traveling, relationships, and important decisions. Those are situations where we care deeply about the outcome but cannot completely control it. Doing something, even something as small as tapping a table, can provide us with a sense that we have responded to the uncertainty.
And there is another psychological factor. Humans are very good at remembering coincidences. Suppose you say, I never get sick, knock on wood, and remain healthy. The ritual feels successful. If you get sick 3 days later, you probably don't blame the table for failing. That makes superstitions remarkably resistant to being disproved.
Well, now here is perhaps the strangest part to me. People often perform the ritual while admitting they don't believe in it. Like, for example, someone will say, "Oh, I know this is ridiculous, but knock on wood, I've never gotten a speeding ticket," and then knock anyway.
Because there's almost no cost. It takes 2 seconds. So, somewhere in the back of the mind is a calculation. I know this probably does nothing, but why take the chance?
And that's one reason that small superstitions survive long after the beliefs that may have created them have faded away. They become cultural habits.
So, where did knocking on wood actually come from? The safest answer is we don't know for certain. Ancient beliefs about sacred trees may have contributed. Christian symbolism involving the cross may have contributed. But one of the strongest documented explanations connects touch wood with old children's games in which touching wood literally meant you were safe.
And the larger idea is much broader than any one country. People around the world have developed little rituals to stop themselves from tempting fate, sometimes touching wood, sometimes iron, and sometimes adding words or gestures of protection.
So the next time somebody says, everything has been going perfectly lately,
You know what to do.
absolutely nothing.
That's right. You're not going to knock, Dr. Weaver?
Well,
Okay, I thought so.
yeah, this has been another quick and quirky episode of Things You Don't Know. Join us again for another ordinary habit with a surprisingly complicated history.
Yes, and be sure to come back, folks. Like, comment, subscribe. Those things are really important. We'll see you next time.